We start in 2 minutes.
Welcome to the end.
Event. Bonjour, buenas tardes to all of you that are present in this IFRC International Federation of Red Cross Pavilion for the very important event today, the launch of a multi-faith, multi-sector alliance for climate action. This is an initiative that we will get more information as we are moving through this program today. My name is Guilherme Faria. I'm the General Secretary of the Action Alliance, that stands for Action and Churches Together. It's a global organization working more than 125 countries, providing humanitarian development and local support. And one of the areas is climate justice. So today we are here representing several events, several organizations that are co-hosting this event. We know that some of the speakers will be a little bit late because they are in the class conference. For instance, we have Ms. Mary Gladson, former President of Ireland, but she's in press conference now, so she will be joining, and we will be moving on. And we have a representative from the Italian government that is just leading a negotiation meeting now. And to do this for the opening remarks here too. But I would like to acknowledge the presence of representatives from the governments of Central America, such as here from Nicaragua, from El Salvador, Honduras, and this is an initiative, a multi-stakeholder initiative that brings together governments, civil society organizations, state-based organizations, multilateral organizations, and also the media. And we will hear more about it. I'm going to speak a little bit more, a little bit less here because we need to have this certificate. I can go to Brian and please have a seat. So, we have also representatives from different regions, from Asia, Africa, the Pacific, and Latin America, Europe. Yeah, representation here. So, welcome to this place. Yeah, we will just wait for this specific right here. He said that he wasn't going to do it. I will take advantage just to introduce the full program. That will be 1 hour event, not more than that. And you have the opening remarks on behalf of the hosting organization. This event is being hosted by the government of Kenya, the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, the United Nations Environmental Program, and Alliance. And we will have for the opening remarks Ms. Pacifica Ochieng Ogola. She is the Director of the Climate Change Department, the Ministry of Environment and Forestry of the government of Kenya. We will have a video with Ms. Jen Buck, President of the Department of Fish and Trade and Development. She will explain what this alliance is about. And also, we will have 3 very important religious leaders that will be bringing the perspective of the cooperation between religions and secular organizations for climate action. We will have Professor Dr. Ada Karam. She is the General Secretary of the Religion for Peace. Reverend Jelly Bachman, who is the General Secretary of the Pacific Conference of Churches, based in Fiji, and Mr. Yam Goli, who is Director of the Exchange for Health at the United Nations Environmental Program based in Nairobi. And then we will hear all initiatives that are part of this launch today. There are initiatives that we are inviting all of you, all your networks, your organizations to engage, to be part of, and also to bring different other initiatives that have not been discussed by a group of people that have been working on that. And the first one, it will be about the creation of a municipal just transitional fund. We will have Mr. Martin Palmer, who is the founder, president, and interim chief executive of Invest. And also Ms. Mafalda Duarte, she is the CEO of the Private Investment Funds at the World Bank. And the second initiative, it's about a joint clean energy access communication and advocacy campaigning. And we have here in representation of the Alliance, the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet, Ms. Isabel Beltran, the Latin American and the Caribbean representatives, and that is related to the Rockefeller Foundation. We have also Ms. Mary Robinson, as I mentioned, she will be joining us soon. She is the co-founder of the project London Lion, and she was the former president of Ireland. And then we will have a topic, another initiative that's engaging faith-related media and communications networks. And we will have Ms. Amanda Byrne from, she's an environmental broadcaster and executive producer working at Al Jazeera. And also for the clean energy, together with, sorry, I forgot to mention that, we will have Reverend Fletcher Harper from Green Faith, and he will also be making the closing remarks.
I can't hear you, by the way.
That's the program that we have today. We have not... We will wait then for, we will not wait for the opening remarks. We will, as soon as Ms. Pacifica arrives, we will give her the word. So I would like to, maybe to start with the Ms. Jinda. She will be explaining to us what is the purpose, what this alliance is about. And I hope that the sound for this it will be okay.
Greeting friends and climate advocates. I'm Jean Duff with the Partnership for Faith and Development and co-chair with Rudolmar Buena de Faria of the Rule 17 process, which helped to shape the multi-faith, multi-sector alliance for climate action, which has been launched at COP27 here today. The news from COP27 strongly reinforces the urgent necessity of going further, faster, by scaling up and accelerating climate action. This calls for action that crosses national boundaries and requires engagement in solutions from all sectors of society. Although the faiths around the world have emerged over the past decades as one of the major forces tackling climate challenges, there has been to date only marginal engagement with comparable secular visitors. The time has come to build stronger links and partnerships between faiths and the secular organizations, complementing and scaling each other's efforts. The Alliance has been organised to do just that. The Alliance is intended to serve as a bridge or meeting place between existing multi-faith actors and their coalitions and key secular actors, including governments, multilateral organisations, private sector, civil society organizations, and the media, to explore and advance collaboration in specific areas for climate action. It's not a formal organization, but a coalition of the willing, sharing common goals and diverse capacities and networks, and collaborating to elevate and add value to existing autonomous initiatives. The Alliance will focus on action areas to amplify ongoing secular initiatives through the engagement of faith networks. I want to underscore that the Alliance mandate is for short-term action and not another talk shop. As a start, Room 17 members work together to prioritize 4 specific opportunities with promise for scaling up reach and impact through faith engagement. Some of them are ready for the next stage, and some are still in the planning phase. I'll briefly mention them here, and you'll hear more from the speakers that follow. The 4 joint action priorities are: 1, to support the development of investment funds that leverage public capital with the assets of faith institutions. 2, to support global energy access in low-income settings by engaging local faith actors. 3, to support the mobilization of women and youth leaders for achievement of carbon emissions goals through the engagement of women religious leaders and women of faith networks. And 4, to systematically engage faith-related media around the world on climate issues. The Alliance, drawing on the strengths and experience of its members, will function as an informal network to advance cross-sector collaboration and facilitate faith engagement in specific initiatives such as these 4. Each initiative will be set up to function autonomously as a partnership between the faith and secular groups, with the Alliance enabling awareness and potential sponsorship. The heart of the Alliance is in this networking between faith and secular groups, bringing together key groups with real projects that can be expanded with support and faith engagement. We're most grateful for the hard work of Room 17 members representing diverse faith and secular organizations, and to Rockefeller Foundation and the Brookings Institution, and the many other colleagues whose collaboration has resulted in the launch today of the Multi-Faith, Multi-Sector Alliance for Climate Action.
Thank you to Jim that is following us on YouTube. This is live streamed today. Now we will hear to 3 videos from 2 very short videos, 3 minutes each, from 3 religious leaders that have been involved in this process, and also will indicate why it's important for having these multi-stakeholder corporations.
Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you, greetings in this wonderful moment of launching a critical initiative for our one planet on which we all exist in our remarkable diversity. Those of you who know me know that for the longest of times I have argued for the criticality of religions, religious institutions, religious leaders, faith-based NGOs, actually working together, actually partnering together so as to reduce duplication and increase effectiveness, reach, and capabilities. Now, I think the important call that this particular initiative, which is much needed, is making, and it has to happen if we are to survive, is a call for partnerships, religious or not. Quite frankly, we can't exist in our respective bubbles anymore. If there's one that we've been learning time and again, is that the very air we breathe, the water we need, the things that we cannot live without, require us to work together, regardless of whatever religious or gender or ethnic or tribal or racial differences or national or religious. We have to work together. We have to put our shoulders together and lift up. The beauty of this particular alliance is that it is a group of religious actors and leaders who want to, who have reached out to, reach their hands out in partnership, for the sake of our planet, with the broader secular world. For the longest time, secular actors often accuse religious actors of being either inactive or too active for harm. Well, guess what? Here's an opportunity to be active together for good. Let's seize it. Let's make sure that we can launch this country. Speaking from Religions for Peace's perspective, I'm in the community, not just human resources, but some financial resources also, to make this partnership possible. Join us. This is all the world's faiths and their institutions joining together to save the environment. It's an important moment. It's a critical initiative. It's One Earth. Let's work for it together. Thank you.
Warm Pacific greetings to you, dear friends. And while I'm not able to be with you in Sharm el-Sheikh at COP27, I am very grateful for this opportunity to share a few words at this very important launch for this multi-faith, multi-sector alliance for climate action. In fact, the reason that I am not with you at COP27 is the reason why this alliance for climate action that involves multiple sectors and in particular faith communities and civil society is so important. The PCC, the organization to which I serve, made a decision that instead of using funds to travel to COP27 for travel and accommodation, those funds, that exact amount of money, could be used for addressing loss and damage and for addressing adaptation for a climate-affected community. That's what it's about. These communities that need help and need assistance right now. And as the world continues to struggle, countries continue to argue about who has the responsibility, who has the funding to give. Our people continue to suffer. And so I recall what was shared at the launch of the Cure Declaration by Pacific Faith Communities and Civil Societies, launched in Sharm el-Sheikh just last week, where we recognize that everyone has a role and a responsibility in ensuring just, equitable, and secure futures for Pacific peoples and for all people affected by climate change. And we have a call and a need for strengthened cooperation, collaboration, and co-implementation with civil society, greater coordination, coherence of policies and programs at all levels. And at the Cure Declaration, we also issued the call for the Cure Finance Mechanism, which allows civil society, which allows actors like this alliance to work together, not just at national levels, but at sub-national levels, to work with business interests and those who are willing to ensure that communities are able to access climate funding as soon as they need it. These are opportunities for us as communities, as organizations, to make a real difference, not only in just transitions, but also in addressing the urgent need to address loss and damage, adaptation for local communities. Just imagine the fare that you have spent to come to Sharm el-Sheikh and the accommodation could have been used for a community that needs that help and that support to deal with the impact of climate change right now. And so we urge you to support this alliance, to support this initiative, and let us work together, not only for the survival of our people, but against all odds in the climate emergency for their flourishing. Renaka, and God bless you.
Dear friends, there are varying views by the secular modern society on the role of religion in public life. Religions are seen by some secularists as undemocratic, or that religious beliefs are old-fashioned and thus have no place in the organization of the modern society. To them, religious values are marginal to environmentalism, which should be shaped by science, not faith. On the other side, some conservative religious leaders who believe that God gave humans dominion over the natural world often disagree with the science and scientists behind climate change. We have witnessed these views mostly during policy debates, and there is a need to break the mistrust between the two. Religious environmentalism is a part of a global movement that seeks to integrate the creative, humane, and helpful parts of both secular society and religious traditions. Religious actors and institutions are not just doing religion, but are contributing perspective on secular topics with religious interests in mind. This necessitates engagement with the secular world. A common denominator is the area of ethics and values. Both religions and secular ethics offer complementary approaches to achieve environmental sustainability, as sustainability is in fact an ethical issue involving individual behavior and institutional policy. Secular ethics focus on our responsibility towards nature, responsibility to and future generations, perceptions of the rights of humans and non-humans, and belief in intergenerational issues. Religious ethics have a different focus in each religion, but all religions agree on the moral responsibility to live in harmony with nature and that we are part of a larger purpose in life. As humanity is facing existential threat by climate change, there is no place for any divide. On the contrary, we need to maximize the common areas between the two. We need to emphasize the need for a complementarity between ecological approaches and the spiritual connections in adopting both the secular ethics and the religious ones to foster pro-environmental behavior. While there are many initiatives, multi-faith actors and cooperatives working at all levels, I believe we need something like the multi-faith, multi-sector global alliance for climate action. This alliance should be action-oriented with specific projects and specific timelines for delivery by both the secular and the religious sectors. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the three speakers, Dr. Aza Kalam from Believing for Peace, James Gold from the Pacific Conference of Churches, and Iyad from the United Nations Environmental Program. Now, before we do go for the four initiatives that were mentioned, we will introduce later the four programs or initiatives that the group has been proposing. I'd like to recognize the presence of Ms. Pacifica from the government of Kenya, the Minister of the Director for Climate Change as the Minister of Environment and Forest of the government of Kenya. And she will give us some remarks on behalf of the organizer, co-host of this event. Ms. Pacifica, you are right and you are speaking about this.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you very much for doing this event. And I want to take this opportunity to really thank Asta Alliance for considering Kenya as a focus for this event. As Kenya and as a climate change directorate, we have been working very closely with our faith-based organizations in Kenya because climate action without a multi-stakeholder approach where everybody is involved and it cannot be successful. And we see this, the faith-based organizations in Kenya as opinion leaders because the church in Kenya, we have a very diverse religions in Kenya. And I think all religions in Kenya, the priests and the imams, are the people who people really listen to. And also, as a country, we believe that the responsibility to safeguard environment is very, very important and it's embedded in our constitution. And we also believe that the national government cannot do it alone without engaging with the private sector, the youth, the civil society, and the sub-national government for it to be successful and impactful. Just a few minutes ago, I was in a Kenya delegation meeting and I was really happy and impressed because we really had a big multi-stakeholder in our delegation, including the media, the private sector, civil society, and everyone. And everybody had very rich feedback on how this is going to impact implementation in the country. And we had somebody from the faith-based organization, who has requested that when we go back to Kenya, we have a sit down and we convene a meeting that is focusing on that specific area. And I just want to make a commitment that we as the ministry and also as the responsible climate change, the responsible directorate for climate change, that we are willing and ready to work with you. we have received a lot of support from you through your manpower, for lack of a better word. We have one of our best and youthful climate negotiators as a staff of Earth Alliance, and it's a demonstration of how open-minded we are in terms of engaging and even making sure that the people who are working in this space get into the negotiating rooms and helping us with the decision-making process. So the initiatives that are being announced today, I would like to encourage everybody who is here to support and join so that we can build momentum towards implementation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's a very powerful comment, and thank you for joining and supporting this initiative, because we know that multi-stakeholder cooperation is fundamental when talking about climate justice and the climate crisis we are facing today. Now we will have the introduction to 4 initiatives that this group is proposing for being managed by the Alliance. And that is not the only ones. New ones will come up based on the engagement of the different networks and organizations. But that is what we have prepared as a group. And we will hear first the multi-phase just transitional or transition fund. And we have Mr. Martin Palmer from the Faith Invest, and Mafalda Duarte from the Climate Investment Funds at the World Bank.
Okay, go.
Good day, I'm sorry not to be with you at this momentous meeting, but delighted to be able to join you by the magic of modern communications. My name is Martin Palmer. I'm the CEO of Faith Invest, and about almost 3 years ago now, I met Mafalda at a conference we were hosting in Geneva, where we were looking at the way in which the faiths could actually cooperate in order to use their enormous stakeholder role as investors in shaping a better world. And it was one of those wonderful moments where Mafalda and suddenly discovered, I think it would be fair to say, that it was the first time that she had really appreciated the fact that the faiths themselves are major investors, that we are, as faiths, stakeholders in the planet. And her immediate challenge was, well, this is fantastic, why are the faiths more engaged at a real big infrastructure level in helping to create the world that all our faith teachings in various and different ways tell us is absolutely essential. And there was this sense, I think, from Mafalda that she was delighted to discover there was this enormous wealth in the faith, but was surprised at how little she was aware of that in the international development and investment world. And so from that, we began to talk, and we began to look at the fact there was no easy vehicle that would enable the faiths as investors to engage through due diligence having been done with a body that would say this is a worthwhile project, that they could then bring substantial capital to the market to assist. And when we began to talk about the role of CIF and the role of Faith Invest, we realized that we had the potential for creating a mechanism. CIF has the knowledge, the experience of doing due diligence, of discernment, on mega infrastructure development projects, addressing all the key issues that absolutely are at the heart of the faiths in terms of sustainability in the environment, energy, food security, land restoration, and so forth. We could bring many of the really big players, the really large faith investment groups, with their scores of billions of dollars, to bring them into that market. If we could find a way in which they could invest with essentially a low risk and a low return. And one of the great things about faiths is that we invest for a long period. One of my favorite fund managers, Gunilla Holm of the Church of Sweden, says, we invest for eternity when people laugh. She said, no, I mean that. So there is a long-term perspective in the faith, but there is also a certain caution. There's always been a slight tension between God and man in many of the religions, and this has led to almost a sort of underground movement of the religious investment world, which really didn't want to stick its head above the parapet too much. But that's changing. And this proposal of a multi-faith just transition fund is potentially one of the biggest ways that this can move forward. With the knowledge, the skills of CIF, as well as some of the international development banks, along with potential interest in providing concessionary investment from sovereign wealth, we are beginning to build a structure that would enable the faith to be major players, putting in $1 billion plus into a fund that would then be able to leverage probably 5 to 7 times that because the faiths were involved from other sectors. And that would then be possible to work alongside, for example, the Islamic Development Bank, or alongside CIF, in order to provide the kind of depth of finance that is needed to make a real difference. So we're extremely excited to be able to announce today that we're launching the Multi-Faith Just Transition Fund. We are going into now the deep research stage of finding out who will invest, how this will be managed. It will be a new organisation that will be supported by both CIF and by Faith Invest, but will be autonomous. But most of all, I think what really excites me is that we are looking at setting up a structure which enables the faiths to use their stakeholder role to do what all our traditions say we should be doing. We should be investing for people and planet. We should be able to do what the Pope has called care for our common home. And we know from the scale of the challenges that we're hearing about day after day here at Sharm el-Sheikh, but all around the world, that the scale of the challenges require a combined partnership of the willing that has never ever been tried before, never been more necessary, and we welcome you to join us. Come and help us make this happen.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you today, even if only virtually. I'm actually recording this from Sharm el-Sheikh, but I'm leaving and unfortunately won't be in Egypt anymore on the day of this event. But it is a real pleasure to be with you. My name is Mafalda Duarte. I'm the CEO of the Climate Investment Funds. We have been spearheading climate investments for almost 15 years in developing countries, and we have seen power of our type of resources, so concessional, risk, patient capital, and having a partnership with a set of multilateral development banks to actually deliver concrete investments and impact. We have investments in 72 developing countries. We have more than 400 investments across different sectors: energy sector, transport, agriculture, land use management, and others. And over these years, we have managed to drive significant impact. We are talking about more than 27 gigawatts of new renewable energy installed capacity, 40 million people being supported to better cope with the climate impact. But we all know that we are lagging behind in terms of meeting the SDGs, and certainly in terms of action that is aligned and commensurate with what is required if we are to avoid or prevent significant climate impacts. The science keeps telling us every year that the window of opportunity is narrowing. On the other hand, we also know that to meet those climate goals, we have to go through big transitions. In all sectors of our economies, we need transitions in our societies. And we are being called to support and drive these transitions at a pace and scale that we haven't necessarily seen in the past. And what does this mean? It means that if we don't pay sufficient attention to the just elements, to the social inclusion elements, we will see a lot of people bearing the brunt of these costs. So this is so critical that as we talk about climate action and climate emergency, we talk about just transition at the core of that climate action. So it was a pleasure. In fact, Martin and I, Martin Palmer and I, met a couple of years back. And it was a meeting of the minds and the hearts. I came to understand and appreciate that actually faith organizations have a really big potential to actually make a big difference in developing countries. And even more so, and I think this is even more urgent, in general, before the pandemic and the war in Ukraine, we already knew that support to developing countries was going to be critical, and that we were seeing insufficient levels of investment in developing countries. So we really need to mobilize ourselves in new, strong, powerful partnerships to deliver in developing countries, to deliver climate ambition, which is closely aligned with development impacts. So Martin and I met, and I think we both realized that we could do something or try to do something about this. And it's been a pleasure for us at Climate Investment Funds to work closely with him and his team in trying to come up with what could be a just transition fund that faith asset owners and managers could support. The recipe is simple. It's basically using some of that capital of faith asset owners and be managed by specific institutions, partner that with capital that is of the same nature of the capital that we have been using in developing countries. So risk, patience, concession. And through this partnership, target investments in developing countries that bring about the development, the climate, the just transition outcomes. So we are very much looking forward to seeing this mechanism and the potential that this mechanism can bring about come to fruition in the very near future, in the short term. So thank you very much. Look forward to continuing to engage with many of you in this endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you to Martin and Mafalda for the presentation of this initiative. The next one we will pass very quickly to the Joint Clean Energy Access Communication and Advocacy Campaign. We have here with us Ms. Isabel Beltran and Reverend Fletcher Harper, that we will introduce what are the different initiatives that we are cooking on this project.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone, honorable guests, colleagues. It's really, thank you for having me and us as GF today here at the launch of this important multi-faith and multi-sector alliance for climate action. I represent the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet, GF for short. And this alliance mission is to, the mission of GF is really aligned with this alliance's mission of engaging communities of faith in the important work of energy access and transition, and leaving no one behind. This is closely linked to the initiative number 2 that was just explained, we'll probably explain in a little bit, but also with the work that sees in the investment fund just mentioned. We really commend these alliances focuses on supporting youth and women leaders in this space. GF is an alliance of 19 partners representing philanthropy by our founding partners who are the Rockefeller Foundation, the IKEA Foundation, and the Bezos Earth Fund, but as well as local entrepreneurs, technology, policy, and financing partners, and more importantly, governments. Together, we support countries, the country's shift to clean energy, ensuring universal access and equity and more inclusive economic growth. We launched just 1 year ago in COP26, and here we are celebrating the launch of this alliance and also showcasing a little bit of the work that we have achieved in the past year. I head our work in Latin America and the Caribbean, And to give examples of what we do is in Haiti, which has the lowest electrification rate of the Western Hemisphere. We are supporting solar mini-grids deployment to increase energy access, but we're also working with local businesses with a productive use program that ensures that energy is used in a productive way to encourage economic development. In Puerto Rico, an island that has been devastated by hurricanes and people are left without electricity for months, we're working to provide blended finance for renewable backup energy for critical facilities defined as the social and economic facilities. So that includes churches and faith organizations and markets and community centers that provide economic, social, and basic economic and social services to the communities post-disaster. And we look forward to engaging more in our work in other countries in Latin America. But why all this matters and why I think the work that you guys are launching today is so amazing. Energy access and the energy transition is a crisis in our time, but it also represents an opportunity. There's so much funding, there's so much energy, and there's so much willingness to work together that we could use this as an opportunity to really make important changes, ensuring that we don't leave people behind. There's still 760 million people that have no electricity. And if we consider that having a light bulb is great, but it's not exactly leading to economic development, and that still means that you have energy poverty. We have 3.6 billion people that consume so little electricity that that's not really conducive to economic development. We must make all the investments and all the efforts working collaboratively to address this. So I invite you to join us in the work of ending energy poverty and ensuring just energy transitions, but I'm also extremely excited to see where this effort goes and how this alliance develops, and we're ready to support and follow your engagements. Thank you.
So we will hand over to Reverend Fletcher now and acknowledge the presence of Ms. Mary Robson. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Fletcher Harper with Green Faith, and to follow on the important work that GEP is doing, just a few minutes about religiously based efforts to address energy access. So over the years, religious groups in a lot of different geographic locations have implemented renewable energy projects of various kinds. I see Valeria and Bernard from the Brahma Kumaris, who have a remarkable retreat center, solar powered, in India, the Interfaith Center for Sustainable Development here, and its director, Jonathan Merrill, who partnered with Gigawatt Global on a very important African faith-hosted renewable energy project. And then organizations like Green Faith, which I serve, and others have done distributed solar projects in a variety of geographies. The reality that we face with the energy access situation, just taking Africa as an example, is depending on which source of figures you look at, there's somewhere north of 500,000 people in Africa, 500 million people, who lack access to reliable sources of electricity. If you look at how that problem gets solved, which is fundamental to education, livelihoods, health, any measure of human well-being, you've got to have energy, and because of the climate crisis, it has to be clean. We've seen all of the appropriate pushback at this COP about not gassing Africa, and that's directly relevant to these issues. So how is it that you get energy to these communities? The data is that somewhere between 50-60% comes in through large grid-scale projects that are major governmental development bank type initiatives, but that will not solve the problem in its entirety. Upwards of 50% is going to have to be addressed by much more local, distributed solutions. And that's one of the places that religious groups have an important role to play. Religious groups have a presence in these communities that's unparalleled by any other institution on the face of the planet. They have facilities which can oftentimes be host sites for mini-grid or other anchor renewable energy initiatives at the community level. And as was said earlier, they have investment vehicles and funds which, when the dots are connected between all of the different parties within the religious sector, can can lead to the deployment of capital. And for God's sake, we've got to figure out a different vocabulary, the condescending vocabulary about concessional or first loss capital that gets deployed by the financial markets to describe the kind of capital that truly saves lives. Please, it's absolutely unacceptable that financial markets refer to and think about capital in those kinds of ways. To use a religious term, it's blasphemous. So we've got to, sort of religious groups have an opportunity to come in, play a major role at the project identification and development stage, major role and a meaningful role at the level of helping with the flow of finance at appropriate rates of return to help scale these issues. A particular opportunity to focus in and to support the development of women-led and community-led and own efforts, because the purpose of the energy transition is not to recreate the energy system that we have now. It's to move towards a truly energy democracy kind of model where local communities have power in an economic, political, as well as electron level. So there are ample opportunities for collaboration, and we're very optimistic that when we get the chance to sit down and talk, we can do this. The SHINE campaign, which many folks have heard of, has been an important sort of source of resource. Mary was sort of present at the inception of that a couple of years ago. So there's lots of good opportunity with this, and we're looking forward to digging in further.
Thank you very much to both of you. That is one of the initiatives that are being proposed by the multi-state and multi-sector Alliance for Climate Action. Now we have another program, a proposal, that is the Women and Youth-led global campaign to meet the carbon emissions targets. And we have here Ms. Mary Robson, who is the co-founder of the project Dandelion, and and she's also the former president of Ireland, and she will be introducing this initiative.
Thank you very much. Should I stand or sit? I think I'll stand. I'm more comfortable standing. I can see you all, and I'm really pleased to be here. I'm here because of the contacts of a dear Irish friend, Jean Duff. Who knows Jean Duff here? Anyone know Jean Duff? Good. So a few hands going up. Because I wanted to have this conversation with faith-based groups. And I want to start by reflecting that COPs are difficult. That we're forced to confront over and over again our worst imaginings of an apocalyptic future. And it's right that we do recognize how bad things are. Not only are we on track for a dangerously overheated world, but millions of people are already experiencing the devastation wreaked by climate change. It's a tragedy that we have reached a point where we have so much damage, where we witness such loss, and that's why we have to focus on loss and damage in this COP. Living in these times means accepting painful truths. But while we may be contemplating a frightening future through the lens of maybe a 2.8 degrees Celsius warmer world, we're not there yet. We may be at the precipice, but we still have a chance to change that terrible trajectory. A wise and dear friend of mine, Indigenous activist Jade Bigay, whom I'm glad to say I met in her Indigenous Pavilion. She has organized the Indigenous Pavilion here at the COP. She posed this question, which I offer to you today. What if our best times are still ahead of us? What if our best times are still ahead of us? What if out of these dark days comes a possibility for a new wholeness? What deeper reserves of resilience might spring forth if we ask ourselves to picture a better future? What if our best times are still possible if we only work together to bring them to fruition? I firmly believe that we are able to see our best times. We need radical and urgent cross-sector collaboration to get there. And therefore I'm very, very glad to be with you today to welcome the Multi-Faith, Multi-Sector Alliance for Climate Action, a coalition of those seeking greater collaboration among faith-led and secular initiatives to go further fast in addressing the enormous challenge posed by the climate crisis. I'm particularly energized, I must say, to see many women of faith and women faith leaders stepping forward and confronting this threat we all face. So let me in fact particularly address women directly, women of faith. You shouldn't underestimate your reach or the powerful influence you have in creating behavioural change and crafting new stories of this better future we should all be wanting to hurry towards. And so with this in mind, I wanted to tell you about Project Dandelion, one of your 3 action initiatives being embraced as part of the new alliance. Project Dandelion is the feminist answer to the moonshot of John F. Kennedy sending a man on the moon in 8 years. We realised there's 7 years to 2030 by January. And we wanted a feminist idea. And Project Dandelion may seem strange, but then the dandelion is the only flower that flowers on all 7 continents. It's very resilient. I mean, you can't get rid of it. You'll excuse me in this company. You can't get rid of the damn thing. and poets write about it. We're finding more and more poems for the dandelion. And how do you spread the dandelion? It's an idea. So we're not asking for a new institution or a new organization as such. This is going to be a women-led movement for climate justice. A global women-led climate justice campaign that is not women only. We're going to start by bringing together women at all levels. Women who haven't necessarily focused on climate, and there are a lot of them. A lot of women leaders who do wonderful work on faith-based issues, on violence against women, girls' education, you name it. But they must now prioritize the climate issue so that we get that best times. And they must do it in their own way, and we must support any woman on the ground who's building resilience, get more support and make them more resilient. Women and girls are already boldly leading on climate justice, addressing the climate crisis in ways that heal rather than deepen systemic injustices. Yet these voices are often underrepresented and efforts inadequately supported. So Project Dandelion is designed to draw on the existing deep wisdom and rooted leadership of women and girls, but also to broaden the movement to all the others, young climate activists, progressive business leaders, artists, all of the movements, all that can be included. And I want to invite women faith leaders to join us in leading on climate justice. If faith communities come together and exercise uncompromising financial, social and political pressure on governments and corporations, they can play a critical role in creating change. I ask faith-based groups to pose the question, why do we pay 1.8 trillion a year to what is destroying us? That's the amount of money for harmful subsidies.